Hello everyone, let's talk about general anxiety disorder. I'm Emma McAdam, and welcome to part 4 of Rewiring the Anxious Brain. In part 3, we talked about how micro threats in your environment and how habitual distraction actually keeps stress stored up in your system, and that can lead you to feeling anxious when you don't know why. So if you haven't seen that video, here's the link. And really, when it comes down to it, what we're talking about is general anxiety disorder. That's when you feel anxious all the time, but that feeling isn't tied to any specific event or situation. And to understand what we're going to talk about in this video, you really will want to watch part 1 and part 3 if you haven't seen those. And that's going to help you understand the anxiety cycle, the fight, flight, freeze response, and how that gets stuck and we end up spiraling in anxiety. But in my experience, most anxiety develops as something we learn and something we habitually do. It's not a permanent character trait. It's treatable. So you really can learn to rewire your brain to be less anxious and to be healthier and happier. And we do this by learning skills to get better at feeling. So today we're going to talk about 4 more reasons why you might be feeling anxious, but you don't know why. And how learning to do something different can help you learn to overcome general anxiety disorder. I'm Emma McAdam. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I just wanted to remind you that if you want to learn more skills to get better at feeling, check out my in-depth mental health courses. I'm working on an anxiety course right now, and I've got some courses on coping skills and how you can change your brain to be healthier and happier. So check out the link in the description to learn more, and you can use the code NUTSHELL to get 25% off. So general anxiety disorder is about feeling anxious much of the time without really having a specific reason. And when you don't know why you're feeling anxious, it can be hard to solve the problem. In part 3, we talked about how constant distraction and avoidance increases our long-term anxiety. And I encouraged you to start a new habit of sitting down and writing about what's going on when you feel anxious. And now we're going to talk about reason number 3, how we think. Now, if you feel like you are facing your anxiety, or you're thinking about it all the time, or you're writing about it, but things aren't getting any better, or when you do think about it, your anxiety just spirals like bigger and bigger. The more you think about it, the worse it gets. And I'm not talking about like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm talking about like you think about it and you ruminate on it and it just gets worse and worse over and over again. If that's the case for you, then odds are good that you've developed some thinking patterns that are making your anxiety worse. So most of us don't notice our internal dialogue. We've developed these habitual responses that exacerbate anxiety, but we don't realize that the way we're thinking makes our anxiety worse. So if you want to work on your general anxiety, you could start by checking yourself for distorted thinking that's making you anxious. So this includes cognitive distortions like black and white thinking, mind reading, jumping to conclusions, mental filtering, and catastrophizing. So let me give you some examples. Let's say your boss asks you a question in a work meeting and you don't have the answer. Black and white thinking says, "I'm a complete failure," or "I am the stupidest person in the world." Can you see how thinking this way will make you more anxious? Mind reading says, "Everyone must think I'm so dumb. They're all probably laughing at me. They must hate having me on their team." We don't usually notice our thoughts. We just believe them. But thinking this way will make you anxious. Mental filtering says, "I never do anything right. I always mess everything up. I don't know anything." Mental filtering is all about noticing your mistakes, only noticing what's going wrong, not noticing your skills and your successes. It's filtering out the good and only noticing the bad. Catastrophizing says, "Today is going to be a terrible day. I'm going to get fired. I can't handle this." It's imagining the worst possible scenario. Now, most of the time we don't even notice our habitual thinking patterns. Our thoughts happen without us realizing how we think. So that can be a huge source of anxiety that we don't know where it's coming from. Now, quick tangent, why do we get so anxious about work? Now, remember how anxiety stems from the fight, flight, freeze response in your body? It's all about escaping physical threats and ensuring survival. Well, your deep, brilliant brain knows that your job is your source of food and shelter, and that not having a job is a survival threat. So if you think that each time you mess up, you think, "I'm a complete failure, everyone hates me, they're going to fire me," then that sends the message to your brain that your survival's at stake. And your brain kicks on these ancient survival techniques, the adrenaline surge and the muscle tension. And these ancient instincts really aren't that helpful in a work meeting. So anyways, how you think and how you think about your work and how you think about other micro threats in your environment really is going to impact your anxiety. But how we think is something we learned. If we developed this habit to think this way, we can also rewire our brain to think differently. So you can change how you think, and that will change how you feel. So to change our brain, we have to take our silent, inward thoughts and make them outward. Write them down, say them out loud, or share them with someone like an honest friend or a therapist. And hopefully this person can point out to you when your thinking is leading you to be anxious. So talk therapy, and specifically cognitive behavioral therapy, can be so effective at treating anxiety because you can rewire your brain to respond to problems with different thoughts. So here's an example. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid, you think, well, I didn't know that answer, but that just means I need to do some research. Or instead of thinking, everyone on my team hates me, you think, I can check in with my team to see if I'm working well with them. Or instead of only remembering every bad or stupid thing you've ever done, you say, I didn't know that answer, but there's so many things that I do contribute to the team. And instead of catastrophizing, you can say, well, let's make the best of today. Who knows how it will go? But I'm just going to try my best. Now, I don't have time in this video to go into too much detail about each of these thinking patterns, but I do talk about 2 of them in my other videos, and I'm making more videos on the topics. So please subscribe if you'd like to see more content about thinking patterns and how that impacts anxiety. So distraction and how we think, I would say, are the top 2 reasons why people feel anxious when they don't know why. Reason number 4. This is that your mind is telling you that you're ready to face the past. So sometimes when anxiety seems to be coming out of nowhere, it's not because you're avoiding your problems or because of distorted thinking. Sometimes when painful or anxiety-provoking memories are coming up from your past, it's actually your brain telling you, okay, now you're ready to work through this old trauma. Before, maybe you weren't quite ready, you were still in survival mode, or you weren't in a safe place, but now you're ready to face this old crap and process through it and heal. So sometimes if old trauma or anxiety is coming up and you don't know why, it's actually a sign of growth and healing. And in this case, again, the treatment is to slow things down, examine what's going on for you, listen to your body and your sensations and your emotions and your thoughts, and then you write things down and let your brain and body process through some old trauma. If you do think trauma is involved, of course, I recommend working with a professional who specializes in trauma treatment. Okay, reason number 5, let's talk about the body. So anxiety is a bodily response to the perception of danger. It's the fight, flight, freeze response combined with worry, which is thoughts of danger. So let's just check in with your body for a minute. If you're drinking a lot of caffeine, if you're using drugs or alcohol, if you're not sleeping, you're not exercising, or you're eating a bunch of garbage, your body's going to have a hard time regulating emotions. Your brain is a physical organ in your body. And so you have to manage whole body health if you want to manage anxiety. So if that list of changes feels too overwhelming, just stop the video, do a quick scan, and see if there's like one area you can make one small improvement on for a week. So maybe it's like going to bed a little bit earlier or going for a 5-minute walk every day. You could also go to the doctor to rule out any physical condition. So sometimes, if anxiety seems to come out of nowhere, it could be something physical that's causing it. So you could get some blood work done, you could check your levels, make sure everything's functioning fine. Or your checkup might tell you that you're deficient in iron or magnesium or vitamin D or something. And you could improve your anxiety by taking that needed supplement. Okay, we're on to the last one. This is reason number 6. You might be feeling anxious because you're not living your values. So remember, emotions aren't just something that happen to us. They serve a function. They serve a purpose. Is your anxiety trying to tell you that there's something in your life that you need to change? If that's the case, then changing how you think or thinking more positive or taking vitamins or whatever, that's not going to fix your problem. So if you're treating people poorly, you're going to feel anxious. And that's a signal that you should change and be kinder. If you're stealing something from your employer or you're cheating on tests at school, you're going to feel anxious. This is not general anxiety disorder. This is anxiety functioning the way it should be. It's like a warning sign that things are not as they ought to be. Now, when you're experiencing mental health concerns, it can be really hard to tell the difference between cognitive distortions or depression, which says you're a terrible human being, and values, which say, I want to be a better human being. But here's one way that I think you can tell the difference. Values give you the choice to make one small change, to do one small action to be better. Depression and anxiety disorders encourage you to shrink down, to hide, to avoid your problems. So if you're feeling anxious and you don't know why, it might be helpful to check and see if there's some area of your life that you really want to change. There's some value that you want to be living, but you're not. And then just choose one small step to take, like just one tiny action. When it comes to anxiety, there are so many ways that we can rewire our brain to get healthier and happier. And as always, I recommend that you see a therapist who can give you individualized help and advice. And really, I do believe that you can get feeling healthier and happier. You don't have to struggle with anxiety forever. So I'm going to keep encouraging you to start making these little changes every day. And these little changes can add up to like a massive change in your life. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching and take care.